groups, teams, and their leadership. Chapter outline. Introduction, individuals versus groups versus teams, the nature of groups, teams, virtual teams, on the horizon, summary. We are born of cooperation, as are the feet, the hands, and the eyelids, and the upper and lower jaws. Marcus Aurelius, Roman Emperor, 161 to 180. Introduction. Groups and teams are different from skills and abilities, values, and motives of those who use them. Groups and teams have their own special characteristics. Group perspective. How different group characteristics can affect relationships both with the leader and among the followers. So, individuals versus groups and versus teams. Team members have a strong sense of identification among themselves than group members do. Teams have common goals and tasks, whereas group members may not only have the same degree of consensus, but about goals that the team members do. Task independence is greater with teams than with groups. Team members have more differentiation, specialized roles than groups. So when you look at teams, a lot of times I want you to think in terms of this is a group of people who work together all the time, and they have assigned roles and duties and tasks. When you look at groups, it might be a group of people who are brought together, who don't work together all the time. It could be something that's done on a lot of times on a temporary basis. So you can see why they're going to operate different, because one is something that you have pretty much all the time, and one is probably something that's done on a temporary basis. Nature of groups. Group. Two or more persons interacting with one another in a manner that each person influences and is influenced by each other. This definition incorporates the concept of reciprocal influence between leaders and followers. The definition does not constrain individuals to only one group. Group members interact and influence each other. Although groups play a persuasive role in society, most people spend a little time thinking about the factors that affect group process and intra-group relationships. So all you need to say is you have a group is two people. And when you have a group and stuff, how they influence each other. And it goes back and forth. Again, a lot of times when you see that, you see all types of groups. And you think about it, when you have a job and you have people put together, most of the time, even they refer to them as teams because they work like teams. Implications of group size. Leader emergence is partly a function of a group size. As group size increases, cliques are more likely to develop. Cliques, subgroups of individuals who often share the same goals and values. So when you get large groups, I'm going to refer to them as alphas. You're going to have some alphas who will materialize. A lot of times, these are people who are more experienced, sometimes might be older, or the subject matter experts. The bigger a group gets, the more likely that you're going to start developing cliques. Cliques are usually not good. That means if you got 40 people in a group, then you may end up with 5 or 6 different cliques of people who contribute to become a subgroup of that group. So this affects a leader's behavior style. Leaders with large span of control tend to be more direct, spend less time with individual subordinates, and use interpersonal approaches when influencing followers. So when you have a large group of people, one thing is you have a span of control that's really vast. You can't spend a whole lot of time with everybody and stuff. So you spend some time with a few individuals and stuff. And that may not be a good thing depending upon how things are, what it is you desire to do. Leaders with a small span of control tend to display more consideration, use personal approaches when influencing others. When you have a smaller span, you can actually, I'll give you an example. A guy who has a span of control of 40 people versus a guy who's got a span of control versus 8 people. You can see the one who's got 8 can actually come in contact with these people almost on a daily basis if he needed to. Limitations to the benefits of size. There may be decrease in returns or on a per capita basis as group size increases. May occur in additive tasks due to process losses. Additive tasks, a task where the group's output involves a combination of individual outputs. So this is where, based upon everybody's got to bring something to the table and do their part. Process is lost. Inefficiency is created by more and more people working together. So what happens is you might have more and more people working together, but then it gets to the point where you have some inefficiencies because There are some things that's possibly not getting done as a result of these people coming together and start working like in cliques. Social loafing, phenomenon of reduced effort by people when they are not individually accounted for the work. So if you've got a lot of people doing stuff, and you may have somebody who does social loafing, like, you know what, I'll do enough to get by because there's 40 of us, they'll never catch it. Social facilitation, people increasing their efforts or productivity in the presence of others. So when people are around, they're working and productive. When people are not, they're not. Tupman's stage of group development. So forming characterized by polite conversation, the gathering of superficial information about fellow members, and low trust. So this is the difference: forming, storming, norming, and performing. And storming, marked by intra-group conflict, heightened emotions and status differentiate as remaining continue to struggle to build alliances and fulfill the group's leadership role. Norming, characterized by the clear emergence of a leader and the development of group norms and cohesiveness. Performing, marked by group members that play functional interdependent roles that are focused on the performance of tasks. This is something that you read about many times, where this is about the phases and stuff. And realistically, I agree with what he says about the phases of forming a group. Gerstnick's punctuated equilibrium model. Teams do not necessarily jump right in and get to work. Spend the initial months trying out various ideas and strategies. Experience the equivalent of a midlife crisis midway into the project. There is a flurry of activity and a re-examination of strategies to see if it will allow them to complete their work. So he's saying that you put them together initially, they're not going to be effective. They're not going to be efficient because they got to figure out what their role is, how to go about doing things and getting stuff done. Somewhere along the lines, if they stay on a project, say it's a 9-month project, somewhere along the line, they're going to say you're going to develop midlife crisis where, people are going to start running around like, oh gosh, is this working? Is this working? Or do we need to do this? Do we need to reassess? So you'll see those things, and that according to Gerstnick. Group roles, sets of unexpected behaviors associated with particular jobs or positions, can be categorized in terms of task, relationship functions. Task role deals with getting a task done. Relationship role deals with supporting relationships within a group. So you see that right there in itself. One thing about getting done, I'm going to make sure to get this done. Another thing, I need to support the people who are doing the task. Problems that can occur with group roles and impede group performance. Dysfunctional roles, role conflict, role ambiguity. And we're going to go into more detail about that. Role conflict is basically when someone doesn't know what they're supposed to do. That's really what it boils down. Receiving contradictory messages about expected behavior. Ways in which role conflict can occur. So you see intracenter role conflict, intercenter role, inter-role conflict, person role conflict. All these basically, they're getting inconsistent messaging. They don't know what to ascertain from it or how to execute. Group norms. Informal rules groups adopt to regulate and regularize group members' behavior. More likely to be seen as important and apt to be enforced if they facilitate group survival, simplify or make more predictable what behavior is expected, help the group avoid embarrassing problems, express central values. So group norms, you got to have, okay, what is it that we all view as norms for the group? Basically, it's kind of like the unwritten rules, the unwritten laws of how we're going to go about not only how we think, how we do things, and so forth. Hackman recommends that a leader has a responsibility to focus the team outward to enhance performance. Group members should actively scan the environment for opportunities that would require a change in operating strategy to capitalize upon them. Teams should identify the few behaviors that the team members must always do, and those should never do to conform to the organization's objectives. So he's saying is, Hackman's saying is, wait, let's look out, outside of this group to try to figure out what is it, the whole environment. Sometimes people have a tendency to get siloed and tunnel vision and only look within and not outward, and to try to see how we can expand and grow and bring more capital to the works. And you also have to figure out what things are basically deal breakers and what things are must-haves for this group. Group cohesion. Some of the forces that attract members to a group provide resistance to leaving it and motivate them to be active in it. Highly cohesive groups interact with and influence each other more than less cohesive groups. So when groups are highly interactive, they do influence each other. When they're less interactive, less cohesive, then they don't do that. In other words, they may work together as a group, but they don't have that interaction with each other and really cohesive. Give you an example. If somebody's really in a group that's a high cohesive group and somebody's struggling with something, somebody else in that group will go help them out to get it done. Have lower absenteeism, lower turnover, which contribute to higher group performance. Greater cohesiveness does not always lead to higher performance, may sometimes develop goals contrary to the larger organizational goals. So you got to be careful with the groups. It's like, okay, is the group's priorities, are their priorities in line with the priorities and goals of the organization? And just because a group is cohesive doesn't mean that necessarily will be a good performance, because they could be cohesive in their effort to not be effective, not do their jobs. Group cohesion, disadvantages of highly cohesive groups: overboarding, overbounding, tendency to erect what amounts to fences or boundaries around themselves and others. So in other words, you're not part of my group or my team. So basically what you're telling me I don't hear, or I don't want to listen to you. Groupthink is when everybody starts thinking just alike. Your creativity goes out the door. And altruism, it occurs when illegal actions are taken by overly zealous and loyal subordinates who believe that what they are doing will please their leaders. So basically, when you have people willing to do anything, even to violate the laws and the policies and stuff, to try to make their leaders appease their leaders. Key characteristics of effective leadership: have a clear mission and high performance standards. Leaders often evaluate equipment, trainings, facilities, and opportunities and outside sources available to help the team. Spend a considerable amount of time assessing technical skills of the team. Work to secure resources and equipment. Spend time planning, organizing in order to make optimal use of resources. So this is stuff this starts with the leader. The leader's job is to ensure these things happen. That can't come from the grassroots, from the direct reports, from the employees. It's got to start with the leader. Am I spending enough time with them figuring out what they need? Do they have the skills to do what they're supposed to do? Do they have the equipment they're supposed to do? Do they have the technology they're supposed to do? Teams have high levels of communication, which help team members stay focused on the mission and take better advantage of the skills, knowledge, and resources available to the team. Help minimize interpersonal conflicts. So when you have these high performing teams, they stay focused. You got people in the group can help others stay focused if they start slipping. And also you got to help work to minimize interpersonal conflicts, because you will have them within teams. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes it can be as simple as just personality conflicts. Organizational sales. So when we look at this, we see the environment. This is the job, the work, and everything. Now you look at the industry, the organizational group, the team. So it's breaking it down from each level, from the very top down to the very bottom. See the tasks, the norms, authority, and boundary. So in order for this team to be effective at work, they have to understand the task, the task. So identifies what a team needs to be effective. So points to the leader either toward the roadblocks that are hindering the team or towards ways to make the team even more effective. So he's got to be able to identify, the leader's got to be able to identify if there's things we're not getting done, are there roadblocks in the way? And if things are going well, then how can we actually be more effective? This is about leaders staying in contact and communication with the group. And also talking a lot to the subject matter experts within that group. Resembles a system theory approach. Inputs are at the base. Processes and thought puts are in the center. Outputs are at the top. So it's like when you look at the bottom line and you see these people are giving you information and it goes in. It's the input stuff. And stuff comes out at the top and then you act on that. So we have an iceberg metaphor for systems theory to teams. So when you look at it, you see the output. The iceberg is protruding below the water. That's what you see. A lot of people see that and it's like, oh, okay. Well, this is how big it is. Look how much you don't see. Look at the process, but most importantly, look deep at the large amount of input that's coming in here. That's way below the surface. These are the things that's going to determine whether or not something sinks or swims. It's this input. If the inputs are not right, the process is flawed. The output won't be what you thought it would be. So here again, looking at these output and these outcomes for high performance teams. So when we look at the organization, you see the input down here at the bottom. You see organizational systems. Do you have a system? The team factors. Is it the right people together doing the right thing? We have the right training, education, and experience. Individual characteristics could be personalities. Do you have the right type of people who can work together, or you have people who are like oil and water, can't? Process. What's going on? That feeds into the process. What's going on? Then you look up here, you see the output, and you see the outcomes are acceptable to stakeholders. Future capability of the team, individuals are satisfied. That's when everything is done right. Here again, when we look, we see the variables, diagnose the team using the process variables. So we see at the very bottom, you see the organizations, the factors, teams, individuals. But now the process up here, you see this is multi-step processes. So we see, we got different things. You can see the effort, knowledge and skills, strategy, group dynamics. And so that's what they're looking at, these 4 different areas. That's where this input leads to these 4 different processes. And of course, those 4 different processes lead to the high performance team output. Leadership prescriptions of, we got to look at. So teams should be built like a house or an automobile. This is what happens when they build a car. They start with the concept, they create a design, engineers go to work on it, and they come up with a prototype, manufacture it to meet those specifications. You got critical functions for the team. Everything starts with a dream or a vision. Somewhere, everything starts with a dream or a vision. And then that person works with somebody to help design it. And then from that person, they go from a design to a development process. Diagnosis and leverage points. So a leader needs to diagnose the problems behind a poorly performing team by using the TLM model. Diagnose the input variables at the individual, team, and organizational levels that most impact the process variable. Using instruments such as the Campbell interest and skills survey to select personnel may help a team effort level for individual perspective. So again, about selecting the right type of people for that team. If you have the best concept and the plan and everything else, but you have the wrong people, it's not going to work. Examine the reward system that may be impacting the team, helps the organization level. So what type of rewards are you getting? These teams get as an individual, group, whatever. Poorly designed tasks or hypothesized to be unmotivating. So when you have poorly designed tasks, it's believed that, they're going to be unmotivating because people are either going to feel frustrated, something they can't do, or something they don't believe in. Concluding thoughts about the TLM. Even if a team is well designed, has superior organizational systems, and has access to superior quality ongoing development, without adequate material resources, it is not likely to do well with output level. Leaders can influence team effectiveness by ensuring the team has clear sense of purpose and performing expectations, designing and redesigning input stage variables at the individual organization team design levels, improving team performance through ongoing coaching. So again, if this process, if it's flawed, if leaders can't get, if you can't get the right material resources into this system at the very bottom, at the input, the output is going to be skewed at the very top. So when we look at the factors from the team leadership model into interactional framework. So we see outcomes, outcome acceptable to client, future capability of team, interview, etc. So we see the leader. So if you look at, you see leader, 3 circles, leader, situation, followers. Notice how they overlap. They overlap because the processes, everything is interdependent. That's why they overlap. So when you see within the leader block, you see the team, you see the team design, task structure. You over here you see for the situation, and then you see for the followers. You can read through each one of those, but this is why these three are overlapping like that, because everything is interdependent. Virtual teams. This is something that you have to get used to working in today's world, because this is very common now, particularly since COVID kind of mandated that we do that, and now people see that it actually is a feasible way to do business. Also known as geographical dispersed teams. According to researchers, areas that must change for global teams to work together are senior management leadership. You got to have senior management leadership, first of all, that believes in it. Some of them do not. There's a conflict from the start when you have somebody who does not believe. I don't understand how someone, if they're in a large organization, cannot believe in that, but some of them would prefer not to. Innovative use of communication technology. Understand how to do the virtual calls and technology and things along those lines to connect people. Adoption of an organizational design that enhances global operations. When you have global operations, that's not an option. You're going to have virtual meetings. Now, do you have the right technology for people to do it, to be able to do this comfortably, and is it user friendly? Prevalence of trust among team members. One of the things that's harder to do when you have virtual teams, it's harder to develop trust among people because they're not physically located. They can't physically come in contact with each other. And it's not impossible, and it's done every day. It's a little harder because you're doing it from a distance. Ability to capture the strengths of diverse cultures, language, and people. And that's one of the great things about bringing people together around the world. You can have a virtual call with people in 10 different time zones on 6 different continents. Leaders of virtual teams need to bear in mind the following research conclusions. Distance between members is multidimensional. Impact of distance on performance is not directly proportional or objective measures of distance. Differences in the effects that distance seems to have is due at least partially to the following intervening variables: integrating policies within a virtual team, integrating practices with between a virtual team and its larger host. So bringing this team and getting them incorporated, even though they're from afar, getting them incorporated into the organization, making them feel like they're part of the organization, and making sure that everything runs smoothly. You know, that's a little harder when you're doing it with multicultural people, different languages, different time zones, different cultures. It works. On the horizon, team leadership appears to be the most studied and applied category of research. Clusters, intact teams that are self-managed, formed outside of a company context, but are hired and paid by companies as a unit, as a permanent part of the company. Manage, govern, develop themselves, define their own working practice and tools, and share out remuneration. So when you see this now, you're seeing these clusters, these intact teams, these things where they almost basically operate autonomously, like with very little involvement from management or whatever else. These people know what they need to do. These people usually are very well experienced, have a lot of industry knowledge usually, and they work together. And most of them will be considered subject matter experts. Summary: group perspective shows the followers' behaviors can be the result of factors somewhat independent of their individual characteristics. Leaders should use a team perspective for understanding follower behavior and group performance. The team leadership model suggests that team effectiveness can be best understood in terms of inputs, processes, and outputs. By identifying certain process problems in teams, leaders can use the model to diagnose appropriate leverage points for action. That concludes this chapter.